Some stories are written in ink, others in blood, and some, strangely enough, are written in gemstones. This is the tale of one tiara, a dazzling crown of emeralds and diamonds, born in the twilight of the Russian Empire, carried across borders and oceans, worn by 4 different brides from royal and imperial families, none of whom found the happiness they expected. It began in 1884, in the golden days of the Romanovs, when Russia still glittered under the rule of the Tsar. Grand Duke Sergei Alexandrovich, brother of the emperor, had just chosen his bride, the young and graceful Princess Elizabeth of Hesse, soon to be known in Russia as Grand Duchess Elizabeth Feodorovna. Sergei wanted his wedding gift to be extraordinary, not just expensive, personal. He took the emeralds that once belonged to his mother, Empress Maria Alexandrovna, and had them crafted into an imperial parure, necklace, earrings, brooch, and at its heart, a magnificent tiara. It was the kind of gift that could make even European queens raise an eyebrow in envy. Elizabeth was a vision of beauty, and the tiara seemed almost made for her. Deep green stones glowing under candlelight, framed in intricate gold and diamond settings. Yet the story of the tiara would outlive its first mistress. Years later, tragedy came. In 1905, Sergei was assassinated in Moscow by a revolutionary's bomb. His widow, devastated, withdrew from court life and devoted herself to charity, founding the Martha and Mary Convent in Moscow. To fund her work, she sold many of her treasures, but not the emerald tiara. That she kept. It was too precious, not in gold or carats, but in memory. Instead, Elizabeth gave it to her young niece, Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna, whom she had helped raise. The gift was not random. Maria was about to be married, and the tiara was to be her wedding crown. Maria's 1908 wedding to Prince Wilhelm of Sweden was a grand affair. The tiara travelled with her to Stockholm, its emeralds sparkling in the northern light. But the marriage soured quickly, ending in a scandalous divorce in 1914. Maria returned to Russia, tiara in hand, and remarried. Then came the revolution of 1917. The streets of Petrograd burned with anger. Royal names were dangerous to bear. Maria, like so many Romanovs, fled. But she had a problem. She couldn't take her jewels openly. In an act of daring ingenuity, she hid the tiara and other treasures inside empty cocoa tins, sealed them with wax, and sent them to Sweden disguised as candles. Against all odds, the ruse worked. Even more astonishingly, her former Swedish in-laws, despite the divorce, safeguarded the jewels and returned them to her. But life in exile was expensive. Little by little, Maria sold her treasures to survive. The tiara, however, went on to find a new bride and a new chapter. By the early 1920s, Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna had accepted what life in exile meant. There would be no return to palaces, no imperial court, no glittering balls in St. Petersburg. Jewels had become less a symbol of prestige and more a currency of survival. Eventually, the emerald tiara found a new home. It was purchased by King Alexander I of Yugoslavia, a tall, ambitious monarch who wanted something truly spectacular for his bride, Princess Maria of Romania. The emeralds, with their deep green fire, seemed perfect for a future queen. In 1922, Maria of Romania walked down the aisle wearing the tiara, a jewel that had once graced the salons of the Russian court and the ballrooms of Sweden. To the crowd, it was just another royal wedding: white gown, veiled bride, crown sparkling under the lights. But the tiara's history was already heavy with divorce, assassination, and exile. For a time, the Yugoslav royal couple appeared happy. They had children, attended state functions, and worked to strengthen their kingdom. But in 1934, while on a state visit to France, tragedy struck again. King Alexander was assassinated in Marseille. The event sent shockwaves through Europe. Queen Maria, now a widow, put away her wedding tiara. For her, it was no longer a symbol of beauty, it was a reminder of loss. A decade later, the jewel resurfaced. It was 1944, the Second World War was raging, and Yugoslavia's monarchy was hanging by a thread. King Peter II, son of Alexander and Maria, was in exile but preparing for marriage. His bride, Princess Alexandra of Greece, a young woman whose bloodline tied her directly to the Romanovs. She was a great-great-granddaughter of Tsar Alexander II, unknowingly closing a strange circle. When Peter presented her with the emerald tiara as a wedding gift, he probably saw it as a gesture of continuity, a jewel of royal heritage passing from one generation to another. Alexandra wore it with grace, but soon came to believe it was cursed. 4 marriages, 4 brides, none with a story that ended well. For Alexandra, the years ahead were anything but peaceful. War, political collapse, and exile followed her. The tiara stayed in her possession, but she rarely wore it. Eventually, she convinced her husband to sell it, believing it brought nothing but misfortune. The buyer was no royal. It was the famed French jewelry house Van Cleef and Arpels. When the deal was made, Peter unknowingly accepted far less than the tiara's true worth. Later, he would learn of the loss, but by then it was too late. Van Cleef and Arpels dismantled the piece. The emeralds, the same stones once chosen by a Russian Grand Duke for his beloved, were removed and sold to an anonymous buyer. The tiara's frame, stripped of its heart, was set with imitation stones. The jewel that had travelled through empires, kingdoms, and revolutions was gone in all but name. And so ended the journey of the emerald tiara. Whether it was truly cursed or simply unlucky depends on who tells the story. But one thing is certain, it was a silent witness to the rise and fall of 4 royal women, carrying their hopes on wedding days and their sorrows in the years after. In the quiet back rooms of European jewelry houses, certain stories are told only after hours. The tale of the Romanov emerald tiara is one of them. They say the emeralds, the real ones, the deep green stones that once crowned 4 royal brides, vanished without trace after leaving Van Cleef and Arpels. Some believe they were broken apart, reset into smaller pieces, scattered into private collections where their past was forgotten. Others claim they are still intact, locked away in the vault of an anonymous collector who knows their story but refuses to speak of it. Every so often, a gem dealer in Geneva or Paris whispers of seeing them, a pair of earrings with a too familiar hue, a brooch whose stones match old photographs of the tiara exactly. But proof never surfaces. It's as if the emeralds have decided to disappear, just as the empires that once owned them disappeared too. The tiara's empty frame, stripped of its royal heart, is still somewhere out there, its fake stones a pale echo of its past. To the unknowing, it might seem a pretty antique. To those who know, it's a ghost, a reminder of vanished courts, fallen kings, and brides who walked down aisles unaware of what awaited them. And in each country where the tiara once lived, there are tiny traces of its passage. In Moscow, a single black and white photograph of Elizabeth Feodorovna wearing it before her husband's assassination. In Stockholm, a wedding portrait of Maria Pavlovna, emeralds bright under the photographer's lamps. In Belgrade, an old oil painting of Queen Maria, tiara just visible above her dark hair. In London's archives, an image of Queen Alexandra of Yugoslavia at the Buckingham Palace reception for Princess Elizabeth's wedding, wearing the jewel one final time in public just before it vanished into the hands of a jeweller. Was it cursed? Historians scoff, pointing out that royal lives have always been fraught with politics, danger, and betrayal. But jewellers, who handle stones every day, sometimes speak differently. A gem, they say, absorbs moments, the warmth of the skin, the pulse of the wearer, the unspoken hopes carried into a marriage. And sometimes those moments stay. So perhaps the tiara was not cursed, only burdened. burdened with too many farewells, too many dreams broken before they could bloom. And maybe that is why, in the end, it chose to vanish. Somewhere, perhaps in a locked case in a villa on the Côte d'Azur or a palace in the Middle East, the emeralds may still gleam in the dark, waiting, remembering,